from Iowa.
It's too bad that things in Paris happened last week, and as a result of that, a lot of speeches are given on the floor of the United States Senate about terrorism. I come to the floor for the same reason, but when I say it's too bad that we talk about the dangers of terrorism and think about them when things that happen in the United States or happen in Paris or someplace else brings it to our attention, because I think what we all need to remember, it's a constant danger that may not appear to us daily, but somewheres out there are people thinking about killing us for what we believe. So I rise today again expressing my sympathies to the people of Paris and those affected by Friday's terrible attacks by radical Islamist terrorists there. On behalf of the people of Iowa, I continue to stand with the people of France. Unfortunately, the attacks last Friday should not have been a surprise. Radical Islamist terrorists have been waging war against the United States and our allies. If you think towards the last 3 decades of the last century, you can think about the terrorism at the Munich Olympics, or an American being murdered on a TWA plane. That person murdered, I think his name was Steinem. And then we had a Jewish person in a wheelchair thrown overboard in the Mediterranean. We had the attempt to bring down the towers in 1993 by car bombs. We had Marines murdered in Lebanon, over 200, I think it was. We had the attack on the towers in Saudi Arabia where our military people were living. We had the East African embassies attacked, and we had the USS Cole attacked. Now, most of those happened before, they all happened before 9/11. Since 9/11, attacks have occurred around the world that I want to concentrate on. From the train bombings in Madrid, 2004, to the suicide bombings in London, 2005, to the senseless slaughter in the streets of Mumbai in 2008. My focus today will be on the United States homeland. Terrorists have continued to try to attack us here on many occasions since 9/11. Some of these attacks have succeeded. Most of them have failed. Some of them have involved direct coordination with terrorist leaders abroad, and some have been committed by lone wolves inspired by terrorists overseas or the views of those terrorists. But these threats are ongoing, and that's what we should not fail to understand. And consequently, we must be vigilant to guard against those threats. We know that we will face them again. Several prominent terrorist attacks in the United States come to mind. We all remember the carnage at the Boston Marathon, April 2013, where 2 brothers detonated bombs at the finish line that killed an 8-year-old boy and 2 others and injured hundreds more. Although the brothers did not appear to have direct ties with terrorist organizations, they were motivated by radical Islamic beliefs. We also remember the November 2009 shooting at Fort Hood, Texas, where 13 people were killed and several dozens others were wounded. Incredibly, the Obama administration refuses to categorize this as a terrorist attack. This was in spite of the fact that the shooter had traded emails with then senior al-Qaeda leader Anwar al-Awlaki. The shooter also later identified his extremist beliefs as the basis of his attack. But those tragedies only continue the pattern followed by radical Islamic terrorists since al-Qaeda hijacked and crashed airplanes into the Twin Towers and the Pentagon that fateful day in 2001. Soon after 9/11, for example, British citizen Richard Reid attempted to detonate explosive packed in his shoe while on a flight to Miami in December 2001. He had previously trained at al-Qaeda terrorist camps in Afghanistan. Thankfully, he failed, but this attempted attack put us on notice that these terrorists were not finished with what happened in 9/11. More attacks and plots followed, perhaps less well remembered after the passage of time. And passage of time is our biggest enemy here. We don't think about this often enough. But they still demonstrate the ongoing threat that we face. July 2002, an Egyptian shot and killed 2 Israelis and wounded 4 others at the Los Angeles International Airport. Although the FBI did not find evidence linking the shooter to a terrorist group, the agency concluded the shooting was an act of terror. In March 2006, another radical Islamic terrorist injured 6 people when he drove his vehicle into a group of pedestrians at the University of North Carolina. The attacker claimed to have conducted the attack in order to avenge the killing of Muslims around the world by our American government. Another example is the Fort Dix 6 plot, May 2007. In that case, 6 men planned to kill American soldiers at the military base in New Jersey, but were arrested before they could do so. The men were inspired by jihadist videos. In June 2009, a terrorist shot 2 recruiters at a military center in Little Rock, Arkansas. One of the recruiters was killed, the other was seriously wounded. The shooter told the judge in his case that he was a soldier of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Later in 2009, 3 radical Islamist terrorists were arrested just before they were able to conduct suicide attacks in New York City. One of these terrorists drove all the way from his home in Colorado to strike the New York City subway system with homemade explosives hidden inside a backpack. He later admitted in court that he was trained by al-Qaeda to be a part of what they call martyrdom operation. He further confessed that al-Qaeda officials ordered these suicide attacks from Pakistan. Also in 2009, on Christmas Day, a terrorist often referred to as the underwear bomber attempted to blow up a bomb concealed in his underwear while on a flight from Detroit, over Detroit. Several days later, al-Qaeda affiliates in Yemen and Saudi Arabia claimed responsibility for that effort. May 2010, a terrorist tried to set off a car bomb in the middle of Times Square, New York City. He was arrested while attempting to flee the country on a flight to the Middle East. The bomber was trained and financed by Pakistani Taliban. More recently, the threat from radical Islamic extremism has sprung from the chaos in Syria. By now, we are all familiar with ISIS, or the Islamic State. Last year, we witnessed the horrors of ISIS' brutal and barbaric beheading of American journalists James Foley, Stephen Sotomayor, and aid worker Peter Kasich in Syria. But as FBI Director Comey explained to the Senate Judiciary Committee earlier this year. ISIS presents a new type of Islamic extremist organization. For one thing, ISIS exploits social media to promote its terrorist agenda and encourage people within the United States to commit terrorist attacks. As Director Comey explained, ISIS propaganda machine is like a devil on somebody's shoulder saying, kill, kill, kill. And if you can't come to Syria, kill somebody where you are. Kill somebody in uniform. Kill anybody. End of Comey's quote, which was his paraphrasing the message that comes on social media. ISIS's deadly message of terror is having a profound effect here in our country. Over the last year, the government has stopped numerous individuals in the United States who tried to travel to Syria to fight for ISIS. According to Director Comey, over 200 Americans have traveled or attempted to travel to Syria for this purpose. I fear that such individuals who successfully return home could recreate the Paris attack here in our country, given the training, the indoctrination, and battlefield experience that they receive abroad. The Washington Post reported on November the 16th that 66 men and women in the United States have been charged with crimes associated with ISIS, including both attempting to travel to Syria to join ISIS or planning attacks here. But beyond ISIS recruitment of Americans to fight in Syria, the Paris attack demonstrates the extreme dangers the group now poses here in North America. Look what occurred just over the past year or so. October 2014, a radical Islamist terrorist who could not obtain a passport to travel to Syria shot up the Parliament in Canada, killing a Canadian soldier on duty at the Canadian War Memorial. The next day, a self-radicalized Muslim convert attacked 4 police officers on the streets of New York City with a hatchet after watching ISIS internet propaganda. January this year, the FBI arrested a person in Ohio for plotting to attack the U.S. Capitol with pipe bombs and guns. The terrorist also allegedly expressed the desire to support ISIS, and he had posted videos and messages on social media supporting violent attacks by radical Islamic terrorists. Later, May this year, 2 Islamic terrorists drove from Arizona to Garland, Texas, to attack a conference center during an art exhibit. The center was hosting an exhibition of cartoons depicting the Prophet Muhammad. The pair shot and injured a security guard before being killed by police officers. ISIS subsequently claimed responsibility for that attack. In June 2015, law enforcement officers in Massachusetts shot and luckily killed a knife-wielding member of a group of ISIS supporters who were plotting attacks here in the United States, along the lines of what Director Comey has said. Just go out and kill, kill, kill. 2 others, alleged terrorists, were arrested and are being prosecuted. Just this month, an American was arrested in Ohio for supporting ISIS. He allegedly posted online detailed personal information, including their addresses of 100 U.S. military members. He had then allegedly called on fellow terrorists to kill these military personnel in their homes and community, along the lines of what the social networking message is from overseas to people in the United States, as Director Comey has reported to us, kill, kill, kill. Just kill anyone. Most chilling of these videos released earlier this week, it's more chilling than maybe a lot of these things that I've just talked about. On Monday, ISIS released a video warning countries against participating in airstrikes in Syria. The video claimed that ISIS would attack these countries just as it attacked France last Friday. And the video specifically threatened to attack this city right here, Washington, D.C. According to the New York Times just this morning, quote, at least 36 people in the United States suspected of ties to the Islamic State were under heavy electronic or physical surveillance even before the Paris attack, end of quote. That ought to wake us all up to the fact that this is a dangerous environment that exists. So it is all too obvious that we will continue to face attacks from radical Islamic terrorists in the future. So I told you, we ought to be reminding ourselves every day about this potential threat. So to help remind us both of that certainty and that we must be prepared for it, I'm going to ask unanimous consent at this point to enter in the record a long list of terrorist attacks in the United States that I prepared from public sources. The list may not include each and every attack by these terrorists here, but it does include a wide variety of attempted and planned attacks against our citizens. It also includes a separate list of individuals prosecuted in the United States for attempting to leave the country to fight for ISIS.
Without objection.
The list includes successful attacks that harmed Americans, as well as unsuccessful attempts that did not, often thanks to law enforcement efforts. What is common to all the attacks is that they were undertaken by terrorists who coordinated with radical Islamic extremists, were inspired by them, or who shared their views. The list of attacks should serve as a reminder, then, that we must always be vigilant. We must never forget that radical Islamic extremists are waging war against us. And so we must always be prepared to fight this battle and to defend against their attacks. I am grateful this Thanksgiving season for the people in this country who do the difficult work of protecting us from terrorists every day. We must continually strengthen our country's ability to win this war. We must ensure that our military and special forces have the ability to take the fight to the terrorists overseas, wherever they are lurking. We must ensure that our intelligence agencies have the tools needed to identify terrorists and their plots while preserving the civil liberties that make our country very special. And we must ensure that law enforcement is able to use the lawful tools provided by Congress, consistent with our Constitution, approved by our courts, to stop these terrorist attacks. I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.